these edge rushers, I'm not sure that any of them that were probably going to be there because I didn't feel like Shamar Stewart was going to be there. I didn't feel like Walter Nolan was going to be there. I didn't think Mykel Williams was going to be there. I didn't think Jalen Walker was going to be there. And so as I'm sitting here, I'm like, all right, like, what are the other options? Who are the best players available? Would safety make sense? You guys were like, no. How about offensive line? And we're like, maybe potentially, right? And so that could be a sleeper. I ended up going with linebacker.
Mr. Franchise Mode himself. It's Fran Duffy joining the program. Hopefully got back safely. He did from, I don't know if I call it sunny Indianapolis, but it, it was functional, right? How was your time in Indy, Mr. Fran Duffy?
I mean, look, it's all relatives. It's not Phoenix. It's not as sunny as where you guys are at. But, I would say contextually, yeah, for what a typical trip is in Indy, it wasn't too bad weather-wise. Uneventful for the most part trip home. I was telling Bo Wolf yesterday, mid-flight, guy goes full extension, but leans all the way back in my seat, like crushes the laptop, like violent collision, no look back.
Oh
no
my God.
Right? So
straight to jail.
It's been a long week. I went full two-hand shove, pushing the guy back, and it was the guy that looked back. It was an incident, but we got through it.
You showed off some really solid explosiveness as far as that goes in reaction. Yeah, we got to revisit, I think, as a country, our airplane etiquette and look at what constitutes putting that old seat back and recline. But speaking of explosiveness, we had a great conversation with you. Post, defensive linemen, edge rushers, linebackers working out on Friday. I encourage people to check it out. The rest of your time you spent in Indianapolis, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and yesterday too, right? Then did you stay through Monday?
I stayed. So drills ended Sunday. I left Monday morning.
Okay.
So yeah, we stayed through.
What were the highlights of the final couple days there for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, being able to see the DBs on Friday, I would say the big highlight for me was Nick Emanwari, the safety from South Carolina, a guy that I was very high on coming through the process. I was expecting that he was going to test like an alien, and that's exactly what he did. He tested like an alien on Friday. So he matched expectations there. I thought Malachi Starks had a really good position workout as well. I know the testing wasn't as impressive, but all the tracking numbers looked really good on Malachi Starks. So I thought he was able to check the box through that event. Going through the offensive skill players on Saturday, a number of guys really stood out. I was focused in on the wide receivers. All of our viewers for PHNX, they can go and check out all of my notes on every single workout. I wrote like a quick blurb on every single player that's up in the draft guide now. So you can just go and there's a bullet point there, from the report. And then offensive lineman on Sunday. I mean, honestly, it was probably my favorite of all the workouts. I thought that was just a really clean workout from everybody involved. A number of guys really stood out.
It was announced or reported today by NFL Network's Tom Pelissaro, Fran, Texas A&M freak show, Shamar Stewart is going to visit the Cardinals today. So they're using officially a top 30 visit on the Texas A&M product. We've talked about him previously with you. 1.5 sacks every year at A&M. But the more people we talk to, it's like usage wasn't great. What does the tape tell you? Does the tape tell you that whether the Cardinals trade up for him or he fell to 16, is this somebody that Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rawls could eventually get double-digit sacks from?
Yeah, I think that he has that skill set to be used in that way, right? And where that you look at the end of the day, the whole is less than the sum of the parts, right? I think when you're watching Shamar Stewart, where you see the size, you see the length, you see that explosiveness, you see that ability to come off the ball, but it just doesn't result in production. Like even you mentioned 1.5 sacks. His hurries jumped up this year, but when you look at his pass rush win rate over the course of his career, you look at his pressure rate over the course of his career, and not even just over the 3-year sample, but even just looking at last year, it was on third down where you can take. That's the thing is when you look at like usage and things like that, you could say, all right, like, hey, on first down, they line him up snug to the formation, and maybe he's playing with a tighter alignment. So, he's not always asked to just get after the quarterback with a runway. But on third down, most third downs, all right, it's going to pin your ears back and go, right? I mean, his pressure rate on third down was 14.2%. That's in the 20th or below percentile of all edge rushers drafted in the last decade. His third down win rate, 11.5%. That's in the below the 10th percentile of all pass rushers drafted in the last decade. And so when you're looking at Shamar Stewart, it's not just like sack production and that's it. I mean, 4.5 sacks in his career, but only 12 TFLs, only 65 tackles in 19 starts. There's just a guy that's not around the ball all that often. And so I do understand the willingness to want to try and bring him in. My guess is he will have one of the highest numbers of 30 visits amongst these prospects because everybody's going to want to have try and get an extra look, at this guy. Now, when you look at Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort over the course of their tenure so far, 2 of their 3 first-round picks reported in for visits. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, by the way. This is all like based off my research. I don't believe they had Darius Robinson in last year for a visit as a first-round pick. And overall, only one day 2 pick that I've got, from my note, and I'm going off based off reports, but 1 out of 8 day 2 picks, and that was Max Melton in for a 30 visit, and only 3 of 10 day 3 picks in for a visit. So it's not a huge sign of like who ultimately gets their name called by Arizona, but the guy that they definitely want to do that extra work on.
Yeah, I think it was revealed in the post draft that Darius did make a visit to the Arizona Cardinals, but it was never reported previous to that. But yeah, I mean,
notes.
Shamar Stewart, I mean, does he even make it to 16 though? It seems like he's getting a lot of run just based off of how well he performed and how well he measured at the combine, which you were telling us like you expected that.
Yeah, I expected all of those like straight line numbers to be really strong, and they were. You look at the jumps, you look at the 40-yard dash, what he did. I mean, 131, 11 feet in the broad is insane. He came just shy of 11 feet in the broad jump, 40 inches in the vert for a guy who's 267 pounds. I mean, that's unique athleticism, unique explosiveness. Now, he did not do any of the shuttles. He got hurt midway through the workout, so we don't know if he was planning on doing them or not. But one of the things that I saw watching him on film was this was a guy that did struggle to corner efficiently. This was not a guy that was like, dip the edge and turn the corner. And that can be an issue in terms of trying to finish. If you talk about like that lateral stiffness, that inability to kind of break down in space, it's not just about, like speed to turn the corner. That also can be, just having that athleticism to be able to break down and finish tackles one-on-one, which can, also explain away some of the lack of production as well. But look, guys, I'm almost done the first round of my my mock draft. I'm doing a 3-round post combine mock draft that'll be up on allphnx.com in the coming days. I don't have Stewart making it to the Arizona Cardinals. I do think when you look at his size and explosiveness, that a team is going to bite relatively early in the draft. But it's a bet that I would struggle making personally.
Agreed. I think they're going to have really good choices up and down the defensive line. Let's switch to the offensive line, where I think the Cardinals with Jonah Williams likely in a contract year. Kelvin Beachum could be brought back. In need of a developmental right tackle. And it's a little murky right now, but some folks have suggested that Anthony Belton, the left tackle from North Carolina, is doing a top 30 visit with the Arizona Cardinals. What can you tell us about the kid out east, 6'6", 336 pounds? What's his, ceiling floor to be drafted? And do you feel like that could be a nice developmental piece for Monty Ossenfort?
Yeah, he was a player, watching him early at NC State that has like raw power and one of the more powerful players in this class. When you look at the offensive line, he has played both left tackle and right tackle. He played some guard at the Senior Bowl as well. So there's some position versatility there that will certainly be valuable. A little bit of a limited athlete. You saw that on film, saw that at the Senior Bowl, carried through the combine. So that was expected. But this is a player that just fully embraces the physical part of the game. I mean, he is tough. He is physical. He will try and torque defenders and finish them to the ground. I think that his mindset is something that will play well with JG and with that staff. And again, the fact that he could slide in to play guard, I think that will serve him well early on if a team is trying to see could he be the right tackle down the road as well. So I think when you look at Anthony Belton, you're probably looking as early as round 2, potentially round 3. But I think in this class, in this offensive tackle group, I do think he'll get off the board before pick 64.
Let's switch but stay at the same position, but we'll go local here and then we'll get into some other local products. But Jonah Savania had a pretty impressive showing.
Yeah.
Also had some high RAS scores. What's your take on the kind of versatile offensive lineman at University of Arizona?
Yeah, he was a player studying him last summer for the first time, Bo. I really saw like a high floor. This was a guy that I thought didn't have a lot of huge holes in his game, more strong than powerful. And the way that I would explain that, the way that a strength coach had explained this to me years ago, and it always kind of stuck with me. If you think of it as water, right, in different phases, a waterfall is power. You think of like water, like rushing at you, like that's going to move everything in its path, right? And then you have a glacier like ice that's just strong. You're not going to be able to move that. He is more strong than powerful. He's not a guy that's going to blow people off the ball. Like Belton is a like mash people off the ball in the run game. He's going to be able to create his own movement. Whereas Savania, I think that he is more of a he's going to take on contact and hold his ground really well in pass protection. He has played some left tackle. He has played some right guard. He's played in a couple different stances for a couple of different offenses. So he is a guy I think that you could offer some position versatility. He offers some scheme versatility. I think he's got solid athleticism. He tested well, as you mentioned. I mean, at 324 to break 5 flat in the 40-yard dash, 172 in the 10-yard split. The jumps were solid. The short shuttle was solid. So I think when you're looking at Savania, this is a player that has some athletic upside, that the position versatility. You feel good about the character. You're just like checking every box along the way. He didn't blow me away at the Senior Bowl. I thought he had a solid week, but it wasn't like an earth-shattering week. But I think at the end of the day, it just kind of fit the profile where it was like, okay, unspectacular, but solid. I just feel good about him being an NFL starter.
All right, let's get down to brass tacks here. We talked to you Friday. Cam Skaboo had not yet worked out.
Yep.
And he only participated in, 2 drills?
The jumps.
Man, oh, man, did he show out in the 2 drills he participated in? What are your thoughts on the young man's vertical jump? And how do you think, could it streamline him maybe a round or 2 above where you initially had him? Because I know we talked about it. It's like maybe end of day 2. Is Skaboo creeping up for you, Fran?
He jumped up 8 spots in my rank. No, I didn't move him too much. Look, I think at the end of the day, I like Cam Skaboo a lot. Actually, Adam Hogan and I talked about him a lot on the All NFL show. We did our draft preview of the entire running back position. So I did a deep dive on Skaboo and a lot of the other top players in this class. And, basically what I said there was that I feel so good about his transition to the NFL. I think that he's going to be a player that he's going to play for 10 years. I feel really, really strong that Skaboo is going to play in the league for a long time. I don't know what the overall upside is. I could see like what it could be. I believe if anyone's going to max out what he's got, it's going to be him. I just don't. I think that in terms of like range of outcomes, I feel most safe that he is going to be more of like an RB2 as opposed to an RB1, and probably more on like the RB2, RB3 side of that ledger as opposed to like the RB1, RB2 side of that ledger, if that makes sense. So I think when you're looking at Skaboo, look, I feel good about him being able to help out in pass game. Outstanding receiver. I just thought the dynamic athleticism, that next level, like make you miss ability that's kind of missing there in terms of creating his own yardage, but he's super strong and could fill a number of different roles for a backfield.
Well, good news, Fran. The Cardinals used a 3rd-round pick last year on a tight end 3. So that tracks. No issue with that.
Oh, and look, because Tip Ryman, he blew the combine up, right? And he was the guy that that had all those all the test scores, and so that's what if Skaboo ends up doing stuff at his pro day and he blows up the pro day, maybe that puts him in that range. Let's
get into the player, the prospect out of Arizona that is going to probably go the highest, Tetairoa McMillan. He didn't work out, but just from your conversations with some of your peers and what you were hearing on the Indy streets, Peter Schrager's saying today he's hearing that T-Mac's not getting out of the top 10.
Yeah, I heard mixed reviews, in terms of just talking with people around the league. And, some people feel really strongly that kind of what Schrager said there, where, he's going to go as high as 6. Like I think that's the early spot for McMillan, and keeping in mind that Tetairoa McMillan played for Las Vegas Raiders offensive coordinator Brennan Carroll at Arizona before that staff moved on to Washington in 2024. And that was his most productive year, was 2023, playing for Brennan Carroll in that offense. And so, there's a familiarity there that if the Raiders stay, let's say, and to me, like that could be a pick there if they don't go with, say, Ashton Genty in that spot. So I would say that's the ceiling. After that, it's tough. Could he go number 12 to the Dallas Cowboys? I think that give him a running mate for CeeDee Lamb. Certainly when you get into the 20s, that's where like that receiver run, I think, really starts to pick up. You start talking about Pittsburgh and Tampa and some of these other teams. But it was kind of tough for me to find a spot that I felt really good about with McMillan once I got into like the middle of the round with my mock draft. So he fell a little bit later than I was anticipating when I was going through my exercise. But he's a tough one to figure out because some feel, hey, you know what? He might be like the third best receiver in this class. He might fall to the latter stages of the first round. But then again, you might talk to somebody else who says, oh no, he's a top 10 lock.
Charles Davis, is he taking crazy pills? He's got Jackson Dart going top 5. We watched Jackson Dart throw, and I think it benefited him to throw. Fran, I'm interested to hear your opinion. Shedeur Sanders, depending on who you talk to, might be turning some people off. Cam Ward feels a lock to be the first quarterback taken. QB2, is it up for grabs?
I do think it's up for grabs. The way I was on with Zach Stevens and DNVR earlier this week, as I was getting home from the combine on Monday, and he asked me essentially the same question, was like, all right, like could he? And it was under the guise of, all right, well, could Jackson Dart sneak into the top 19 and bump another player down for the Denver Broncos at 20? And essentially that's what you're hoping for, right? If you're the Cardinals, you're hoping that another quarterback goes in and slides somebody down. I feel leaving after, and look, this was a huge, as it always is, quarterback is a huge topic of conversation when you're talking to people in Indianapolis at the combine. A lot of mixed reviews with Shedeur. And honestly, there was the more people I talked to felt that there was a better chance that only one quarterback goes in the top 20 as opposed to 3 quarterbacks going in the top 20. And that's not to say that Shedeur is definitely not going to be QB2. But I agree. Johnny, you set it up like, Cam Ward, QB1, could go as high as number 1 if like the Giants were to trade up. If he doesn't feel like he's going to go any later than 2 based off reporting from everybody that's out there. So I think that Cam Ward locked for the top 3, top 2, and then it's going to be a matter of like, are teams kind of floating smoke screens out with Shedeur Sanders? It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. It's only 50 days until the draft, but it's going to feel like 100 when it comes to that discussion.
Your first mock draft, it was 1 round. You had the Cardinals taking A&M pass rusher Nick Scorton.
Yeah. Just
a little hint, like, or can you tell us is it the pick different in tomorrow's mock?
It is going to be different. And I'm going to be honest, I struggled. And I want to get your guys' thoughts here because I was picking your brains about this when we were out in Indy, and I was like, all right, like if probably going to be there because I didn't feel like Shamar Stewart was going to be there. I didn't feel like Walter Nolan was going to be there. I didn't think Michael Williams was going to be there. I didn't think Jalen Walker was going to be there. And so as I'm sitting here, I'm like, all right, like what are the other options? Who are the best players available? Would safety make sense? You guys were like, no. How about offensive line? And we're like, maybe potentially, right? And so that could be a sleeper. I ended up going with linebacker Jahad Campbell from Alabama, and I don't. Hear me out here. So my thought process is that number 1, I think he fits all of like the makeup stuff for JG and that staff. I think that he plays the position the right way. He's got flexibility. I think that multiplicity will help him in that kind of a front. He can come down. He can play. It's kind of like what you're talking about with Jalen Walker, and then he can do a lot of these different things. But I was struggling. That was the first one. I was like, man, I would love to be able to do a trade back here. And honestly, like it's still in the cards here as I'm putting together this first round.
You know who loves hearing off-ball linebacker at 16? Ba-ba-ba-bam. No, I listen to that, Fran Duffy, and it's like, the Cardinals need to start learning Sweaty J with the outline that you just formatted. It's like Josh Sweat might be overpaid, but he's truly available come next week. Whereas you don't know, to your point, on a lot of these guys. So I'm with you. Like it's a strong defensive line class. I struggle thinking teams are going to take a tight end from Penn State before one of these stud defensive linemen, like last year, where it was an elite offensive class and we didn't have a defender taken until the middle of the first round. So I don't think you're crazy. And I think the Cardinals need to be prepared for that. And that starts next week. Check out his work right now. Go
I'm
PHNX.
sorry he did that to you, Fran.
Yeah, that
was out
was
of
so good.
bounds.
Well, that was Milton Williams' agent, right? That you guys flashed up there?
Yeah, get out. How dare you? Hopefully, we're talking to you next week, and we're having a little celebratory party that Milton Williams is a Cardinal, and all of our dreams are going to come true. And then whatever the draft's going to be gravy. It's just whatever we get, we're happy with. We're content.
That's right.
Fran, you're the best, my guy. Talk to you soon.
We'll talk next week, guys.